going live. Hello, friends. Welcome today. I am not going to do any of my normal stuff today. I'm just going to say hello to you, and I'm going to tell you that Claudia Friedlander is here, in case you didn't know, which hopefully you do know. And I am dying to get to we were checking the sound beforehand, and we actually were like getting into the interview. And Claudia was like, no, can we just wait a little bit and just do this with the people? So we're really excited to start talking about all things voice. So let me introduce my guest today, Claudia Friedlander. Dr. Claudia Friedlander is a voice teacher, fitness expert, and author with an independent voice studio based in New York City. Don't start singing yet. Having demonstrated little talent for either singing or athletics as a child, hard to believe, Claudia is proof positive that with commitment, curiosity, and perseverance, anyone can learn to sing and move gracefully and joyfully. She has dedicated her career to creating methods and resources to help others learn how to sing well and how to enjoy the process. So I am delighted. There we go. I am delighted to have Claudia here with us today. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm really excited to talk to you about all of the amazing things that you've been up to, and I know we're going to find some commonalities between the work that you've pursued and the work that I've pursued. And yes, I did think, oh, let's not have the conversation yet, because I think it's going to be really cool to have this conversation in front of other people and see what happens.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody. She just had to rein me in a little bit. And I also did not invite people to comment, but I would like to right now invite people to comment. If you have questions you want to throw out, if you have observations, anything, likes, thumbs, we always appreciate those. Please feel free. Feel free to contribute. We want your contributions today. And wait, what else was I going to say? I can't remember. I'll have to come back to it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Am I supposed to call you Dr. Friedlander?
The only people who've ever called me Dr. Friedlander are the high school kids at the Carver Center when I attempted for 1 year to teach music in the public high schools. And everybody else just calls me Claudia.
Okay, we'll stick with Claudia.
So, yes, that works great.
So, Claudia, there are two big umbrella things. So this may not be the last time we talk on my show if I can, take your time again at another time. But so there's this. See all my Post-it notes in there?
Yeah.
So there's this, which I would love to be able to talk about at any time. But also, when I was sort of doing my What's Claudia Up To these days pre-interview, I also went to your brand new website, which is gorgeous. I mean, amazeballs. It's updated, and it's talking about your liberated voice, vocal elementals. Is that it? Did I?
Well, my Vocal Elementals is my one-on-one program, and then the Vocal Fundamentals is the online course, and I think that's probably the fancier of the pages that I've managed to update.
Yes, it looks great. So what do you want to talk about, Claudia? What's up? What's exciting for you? I mean, there's so much we could talk about. So let's go whatever way it works for you.
Well, what's exciting for me to talk to you about is the learning process. Because I believe that one of the things that you and I have in common is that the way the traditional voice teaching paradigm that you and I might have experienced when we were both coming of age, it didn't work well for me. And I gathered that part of your inspiration for creating the modalities that you created is that you also saw that there was a better way to learn. And so I really just want to talk about the modalities that help us to learn and how they might differ from the traditional modalities that people usually have used to try to learn how to sing or teach other people how to sing.
Okay.
That's a pretty big umbrella.
That is a big umbrella. Okay, I want to talk about that too. Is that part of the vocal fundamentals? No, not the vocal. I'm I'm
It's
messing.
part of everything.
I'm
It's part of
confusing them.
everything that I'm doing now.
The
Yes.
vocal elementals, that's the thing. So the elementals. So I was looking at that, and what I loved about that program, and actually what I put in my copy about you, is it's like it looks like you're like the project manager for all the stuff, because when we come up through the way many of us come up, we sort of just get tossed from teacher to teacher, and they don't necessarily tell us what's going on, and they don't necessarily tell us the why, or maybe we're not really interested in the why, so we don't remember what. But then we get out and we're teaching, and it looks to me like the vocal elementals program has, it's just really, it's like these are the categories, and here are the things you need to understand, so that and it's all under the umbrella, and they're good, they're, am I right?
Yes. The distinction, I think the way to make the distinction clear between the way that I've ended up teaching now versus the way that I was taught, um, I think a good way to explain it is that if you show up to learn pretty much anything that's going to require physical coordination,
Hmm.
say you want to learn to play tennis or you want to learn to play golf, you show up for your first lesson and your instructor presupposes nothing, right? They don't hand you the tennis racket and send you out on the court and start volleying with you. They hand you the racket and they say, here's how you hold the racket. And then they say, here's how you stand. And then maybe they'll talk to you a little bit about what the process is going to be and what the structure is going to be, whereby you get from knowing absolutely nothing about how to play tennis to being able to enjoy volleying or even playing a game with somebody else. But
Mm-hmm.
when you sing, that's not what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
You show up for your lesson and the teacher says, all right, let's see what you can do. And you sing something. Like maybe you've never had a lesson before, but they want to hear you sing something. And then they tell you what you're doing right, and then they tell you what you're doing wrong, and then they just ignore the stuff that they think you're doing right, and they get to work on helping you to do the other things right that you weren't doing right. And they're just going to pick whatever might come up. So say you come and you sing your song and they notice that like it's very expressive and it's very musical, but on this note you're singing flat. So then they like tweak that note so that it's not flat anymore, and then that's your voice lesson. You learned how to sing that note, not flat. Um, the way that I am teaching now, which I have just been enjoying so much, is that when you come to me for a lesson, I just walk you through a couple of very, very simple exercises, just so I can see like how are you engaging your voice, and also how are you thinking about engaging your voice, which is something I'd like to talk to you about. And then we just embark on this journey together where I do the equivalent of handing you the tennis racket and telling you how to hold it. This means we get to talk about things that I never really got to spend a lot of time on when I was first learning, such as how to inhale and how do we use our articulators. You know, if my diction, if my pronunciation isn't really helping my singing, instead of just trying to pronounce things better, we get to look at like, well, how are you moving your jaw? How are you moving your tongue? Here's some exercises to help you coordinate them together a little bit more efficiently. So we're breaking things down into small components, manageable components, so that you can explore them in a way that is more complete, rather than just saying, sing something better, breathe more deeply. Instead of saying breathe more deeply, what I can do is offer you some of the tools that I've learned from sports science strategies and fitness strategies to explore, like, how are you breathing? Would you like some exercises that would make it possible for you to breathe more deeply, breathe more freely, instead of just telling you to take a deeper breath?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that meandered a little bit, but for me, the main distinction is that when I work with somebody, the idea is that my outcome is that I want you to be able to sing the way you want to be able to sing. And in order for us to get there together, um, we're going to look at this aspect of it, and then we're going to build another aspect onto it, and so on and so forth, so that by the time you're done, you really understand how to breathe, how phonation happens, how to invest dramatic intensity into what you're doing, how to, you know, if that note is flat, why might it be flat? And how can you condition yourself so that in the context of the phrase, it will be in tune with everything else? so that you really understand how to play your instrument rather than depending on me to like program and tweak this and that on a weekly basis so that you can, you know, sing a song in a way that's acceptable to other people.
Mm-hmm. And okay, when classical versus pop, when you say, I want you to be able to sing a song, so, and you talk about this, I've read your words and heard your words talking about the, the expression of singing and how it brings us joy, and how, sometimes if what we're looking for is the ability to express ourselves through song for artistic purposes, for personal purposes, avocationally, professionally, whatever. But when we talk that, but that's a big umbrella too, and that encompasses such a diverse set of skills. And so when you're talking about some of these things, do you find that you need to tweak them for contemporary singers, or do you not work with contemporary singers, or what do you do?
Well,
I
I
shouldn't say
work with
contemporary. Let me say popular styles.
I work with people, and I work with people in a way that will hopefully empower their voices, and I mean that in both the literal and like metaphysical way.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that exploring what our voices can do and helping people to just get more connected to what it is that they really want to say and how they really want to say it. That's at the heart of everything that I do. My own background is in classical music. And so I have all of that training, and my own repertoire that I was singing for so many years was primarily classical music and opera. But the way that I often answer this question now is that I don't love teaching singing because I love opera. I love opera because it requires this very powerful and engaged use of the voice.
Yeah.
And so the demands of classical singing are that we maximize our range, we maximize the power, we maximize our resonance, everything's going to be big. Now, for other styles of music, you have more options. Sometimes it can be big, and sometimes it can be very small and intimate. Not that you can't have, intimate moments in classical singing, but the requirements of having to just like project your voice over an orchestra into a huge room limit you in certain ways that other styles of music do not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in working with singers. I have the toolkit to help them maximize everything. And I think that it's a good thing to maximize everything because then you've got a bigger playground, right? If you are able to sing
Sure.
really powerfully and really intimately, then you can make choices,
Right.
whatever style it is that you're singing. What I would say about classical versus contemporary singers is that I am first and foremost a technique teacher. I'm a technique specialist. I can help you condition your instrument. I can help you coordinate your instrument. But then when you're looking for like stylistic nuance, um, probably you will need a coach to really refine that. So if you
Mm-hmm.
know what you want to do, I can help you do it. If you want some refinement in a style that is not my wheelhouse, I'm fortunate to have amazing colleagues who I can refer you to so that you can get that fine tuning of your style. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that, because I too feel that those are, although they certainly overlap, but they are different skill sets. There are people who are great style coaches and don't know that much about technique, and then vice versa. And I have to tell you, because when you were saying this about the tennis thing, one of the things that I say in every teacher class that I teach is, if we were teaching any other instrument, if we a certain number of our students, our people who came to us, would be coming to us for the first time. If I was a piano teacher, there would be a certain percentage of people who had never laid hands on a piano keyboard before, ever. But as voice teachers, we never have that. Never. Every single person who comes to us has thousands and thousands of hours that they have practiced singing. And so from my perspective, because I go through the neurology route, that's a very solid motor memory, right? So the tennis analogy, is it's sort of like to me it's like taking someone who is self-taught in tennis, who can enjoy a good volley, but they you know they don't have the stamina, and their game is inconsistent, and they would like to be better at tennis, but because they've taught themselves tennis, they don't really know how. And so if that's the case, then I'm thinking the tennis instructor would do exactly the same thing they would do with a beginner. Yes? No? What's your opinion?
Um, I find that, see, I'm coming at this from both an athletic paradigm and
Hmm.
also an instrumental paradigm because I was a clarinetist for so many years before I was a singer. The reason that I was a clarinetist, not a singer, is nobody wanted to hear me sing because my voice was just so unwieldy and there wasn't anybody around to like help me with that. But no, I think that generally speaking, athletic coaches and instrumental teachers presuppose nothing. Um, they are going to teach you how they want you to hold the clarinet, whether or not you've had a lot of instruction in clarinet, which
Okay.
was the case when I went off to college, which didn't work the first time. But I went to Northwestern University, and there were famous clarinet teachers there. And when I went to work with my clarinet teacher there, they showed me the way that they wanted me to hold the clarinet. They showed me the way that they wanted me to
Hmm.
form my embouchure. They inspected my mouthpiece. They made some suggestions once they saw how I was playing it and recommended that I get my mouthpiece adjusted
Interesting.
and make some other changes to my equipment. And we started off with long tones. And then we added some scales. And I still had to play, for other classes that I was required to show up for and play for chamber music or for wind ensemble. So I couldn't just like put down the clarinet and stop playing. But when my lessons were concerned, I was starting over again,
Interesting.
not just like patching up the technique that I had. And I believe that that is the case for most instrumental teachers.
Okay, but we don't do that with voice, as you pointed.
No,
So wait,
we
okay,
presuppose everything.
yeah, yeah. Okay, question. So, all right. So you along the way, I know because of this, along the way, you became very interested in fitness. And so, but I mean, it was alongside singing. You didn't say, "Oh, to heck with singing and clarinet playing. I'm I'm going to go the fitness route." You wove those together. So that interest, how did that?
Well, my
I
origin
guess
story
influence
as,
is the word I'm looking for. How does that?
sorry,
It's it that influenced you. Well, one influenced the other, or they influenced each other. That was the word I was looking for. Sorry, I was searching for the right word.
they were, I didn't realize it at the time. But when I decided to take up singing again after all this frustration and deciding, I'm just going to play the clarinet instead, the reason that I decided to take up singing again was because I did some body work that resulted in resolving some lifelong chronic tension that had been affecting my breathing, that had been affecting my throat, that had been affecting my jaw, my tongue, everything. And all of a sudden, I could breathe more freely, I could phonate more freely, and I noticed that my voice was responding better.
Hmm.
So, because there had been structural changes to my body, to my instrument, I gave singing a shot again. And I realized, oh, my instrument is better now. And so I found out that it's possible to evoke structural changes in one's body in a way that can condition us to sing better. And then when I got more interested into just fitness for myself, um, and I started noticing how systematically, oh, if you add some load to this movement and you repeat the movement, then the muscle gets stronger. If you engage in this movement over and over again, that movement goes more smoothly. And I started seeing singing in terms of movements. I
Oh,
started seeing the instrument in terms of something that could be changed in the same way that athletes can optimize their bodies for peak performance in their given sport.
mhm.
I saw that the instrument that I was born with was not necessarily the instrument that I had to train, that it could be conditioned. And so I became very interested in helping singers to condition their anatomy, not just their vocal anatomy, but their whole bodies, because our alignment affects how we sing. Our breathing affects how we sing, and alignment and breathing are things that respond very, very well to physical training.
So what would you do if you had someone who, if I walked into your studio and my alignment was not, and you looked at me and right away and you thought, Meredith's alignment is probably getting in the way of her singing, and then I sang at something and you thought to yourself, you're not saying this to me, but you're thinking, yeah, I think her alignment's getting in the way of her singing. What would you have me do?
Well, I probably wouldn't say that or notice it. I might have said or noticed something
You
like
wouldn't
that in the
say it, but
past, or,
you'd notice it.
well, for for us to find out together how your body wants to be so that it can stand and breathe and move and sing better.
Hmm.
That's going to be a collaboration between the two of us.
Okay.
And the 1 hour that you are spending with me for your lesson
Hmm.
during the week, there's not going to be much that I can do to meaningfully help you discover how your body wants to be. Which is one of the reasons why I'm teaching one-on-one within the context of a more longer-term program. Because within the longer-term sequence of lessons that I would be giving somebody are embedded lessons that focus on fitness. And so there's one that's really just sort of an exploratory session, so you can find out, take inventory. How does your instrument move? And so I'm not talking to you about like, well, this is how your spine should be and this is where your arm should be or anything like that. You can read my book if you want to have like a theoretical basis for how that should be.
Hmm.
But it's more just creating conditions using some of the fitness modalities that I have available to me to help you explore your own alignment. And then noticing how your alignment intersects with your breathing and noticing how these things affect the way that you engage your voice so that you start having a bigger picture of what your instrument is and how it works. Similarly, I can just go buy a state of the art clarinet. You can't do that with the vocal instrument. But when you first learn to play the clarinet, you're also just like learning how it works. There is this long tube and you have to put the pieces together so that the mechanisms line up. And then you notice, oh, some of the holes are just covered by my fingers. Some of them I have to push a key, and then there's a spring that's activated that makes a pad go over the hole.
Hmm.
And so you understand how the instrument works. And so when I first start working with you, I'm just going to give you a tour of your instrument so that you see how it works. And all along, we're going to be noticing how you're holding yourself is affecting things.
Hmm.
And then eventually there will be a lesson module that will talk about inhaling, the anatomy involved, that will incorporate some stretches for how you can inhale better.
Hmm.
And there's going to be a module that then addresses like upper body stuff and then dynamic stability. I'm not going to be anybody's fitness trainer, but over the course of the program, I'm going to introduce you to these concepts and these modalities so that that's going to put you a little bit more in touch with your own body. It's going to give you tools for changing your body if you want to. And so a lot of the motivation is going to come from you. And then if you want me to recommend somebody who can be your massage therapist or who can be your fitness trainer,
Oh, nice.
then I have people that I can refer you out to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to assess you and say, okay, your alignment is like this and it should be like this. Here, do these exercises and then that will fix your alignment and then we can move on to something else. It's a little hard to describe, but again, like this is one of the reasons why I have really been enjoying teaching a longer term program where we have opportunities to like home in on the different aspects of singing technique and teach people how to condition their instruments, which
Yeah.
is not based on some model of what I think a conditioned person looks like. It's going to be based on how you discover you
Right.
want to be, how you want to move.
Which is so cool. And it seems like what you just described really lends itself to that self-study thing. So that I can take time with it if I need to review it again, there it is. And the supplemental materials can, I mean, because sometimes I feel like not all programs lend themselves particularly well to self-study. And they seem great and the copies reads really well, and then we buy them and they never leave our inboxes. We're like, I'm going to get around to
Yeah.
that. But this, I mean, what you just described to me, as I'm listening to you, I'm going, that seems like that would work really well. Because as you say, you're providing this guidance. You're saying, here's what we're paying attention to. But then I'm listening to myself at my own pace. Am I right?
Yeah, when I created my Vocal Fundamentals online course, I was asking myself the question, can you actually learn to sing from an online course?
Well, yeah.
And I don't know if I can promise that, like, if you do this course and you do everything I say, you will learn how to sing. I think that it's going to be different for each person, but I think that what what I discovered along the way, and what I'm continuing to discover as I work with people who are enrolled in my online course and work with people who are enrolled in my in-person one-on-one program,
Hmm.
that there are some things that are really better taught one-on-one,
Mm.
and then there are other things that can really only be learned by somebody engaging the material on their own, processing it, working with it, habituating it, coming up with questions, and then bringing them back
Yeah.
to whoever it is that you're working with one on one. So I think that having access to some of that one on one help, especially for some singers, is going to be super important, because the question is always, how do I know if I'm doing it right? How do I know if I'm doing it right? How do I know I'm making the right sound? And so having somebody give you feedback that, like, yes, the thing that you think you are doing, you are actually doing the thing that you think you're doing.
Hmm.
But sometimes we are not doing the things that we think we're doing. And then one-on-one feedback can be very important for that. And that's one of the things that I'm really curious about your point of view on, because you must encounter this all the time. Um, how has your understanding and expertise around neuro your neurovocal
Hmm.
method um, and neurology impacted the way that you help people to see whether they're doing what they think they're doing and to make changes in it?
So, so, uh, you're interviewing me, Claudia.
I
Um,
warned you I was going to.
you did. You did warn me. You did warn me. Uh,
If that's not okay, then I can just talk
no,
about
it's
myself
fine.
some more. But I'm very excited about the work that you're doing as well. So
Uh, so the work that I do is based on the reality that yeah, that I lived through, and that where okay. So for a long time, like almost 20 years, my life in Chicago was sing on the weekends, anywhere from 1 to 5 gigs on a weekend, and teach during the week. And the people that I was teaching were band singers primarily. Well, band singers and attorneys, interestingly. Those were those were my groups. But I had a lot of what I love to call screaming white boys. With the tattoos and the piercing and the black leather and all the stuff. So I was very intimate with the world of amplified music. And what I learned about that was that the acoustic environment in which we learn. So I'm much better able to give voice to this now. I wasn't able to describe it as well back then. But the acoustic environment in which we learn. So we're in our voice lesson in the same room with our voice teacher. We're in an acoustic environment. Our voice teacher says, here's what I'd like you to practice. And so we go into our home or our apartment. We practice there, in our shower, in our car, all these acoustic environments. And we learn to listen and use our ears for what am I doing, right?
mhm.
Yeah, which is another neurological topic that we could talk about. We will talk about it another time. But then what happens is, for the band singer, is she gets on stage, and there's maybe a monitor. Hopefully there's a monitor or two where the sound is going up over her shoulders and she can't hear herself. And there's bass amp on her right and a guitar amp on her left and a trap kit right behind her, and she can't hear herself at all. And all the stuff that she learned and all that time with all that money with her voice teacher is basically for naught. She just panics, right? And she's aware of feeling, not necessarily panic, but of not feeling like she's on solid ground, and she uses compensatory behaviors, and then we get into vocal trouble. And I've talked to so many voice teachers who are like, the student was doing a great thing, and then she does a 3-hour gig and she comes back and says her voice hurts, and I don't know why. She's doing great in her lessons.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens, because our ability to hear ourselves, and that's what we have trained our brain to use as a control mechanism for the larynx, it's taken away from us. So I teach people to become more sensitive to their interoceptive experience of their voice, which means how does this activity of the vibrating air, right? That we are capable of feeling it. You have to sort of, for most people, you have to sort of learn how to be more sensitive to it. But if you watch these people who are not trained at all, just the natural singers, the people who just get up with and sing with a loud band and don't care, they seem to do just as well, because those people grew up feeling their singing as much or more than listening to their singing. Jennifer Hudson can hit those notes because she knows what they're going to feel like. Her brain predicts what she needs to do to make that intention for that feeling occur in real time. So this is a little bit of a long answer, but to only half of the question. But the point of it is to say that if you are sensitive to how it is feeling to you to phonate, then you can become your own guide, right? You become, once you become sensitive, you know what different things feel like. Then when those feelings do not occur, or the feeling that you're creating is not comfortable, it probably means it also is not sustainable.
Very true.
And so, right. So that's the
Yeah.
I mean, that's the answer to the first half of your question, which I won't bother with the second half because that also would be way too long. But but as you're saying here, with a different modality, but the same idea that when we listen to our own bodies, we get a ton of information. And when we look outside for somebody else to tell us if we're doing it right or wrong, then are we ever really going to feel strong and secure and like we're on solid ground? I don't know.
You probably realize this, but classical singers, opera singers need this, arguably, I would argue, as much as singers who are using amplification. Because if you get used to the acoustic environment where you've been practicing and rehearsing, and then you get out there on stage and it's a completely different acoustic environment, you're going to freak out because you were depending on the feedback you were getting from that other room to tell you that you were singing well. And now, who knows? Where this really becomes important is in live auditions. Now I'm gonna forget the name of the hall, but notoriously the theater in the complex at the Metropolitan Opera that they use for auditions is notoriously dry. And so singers get in there and it's their big chance to finally sing for the Met. Mm-hmm. And they step out on that stage and they start to unfurl their big voice, and it stops right here as far as they can perceive it.
Ouch.
And Da Capo Opera, they used to have a space that they rented out for rehearsals, and they were just as bad. And so before we had Opera America, which they have a really nice hall that's acoustically beautiful and comfy, and you can go in there and sing, and probably you're going to sound good to yourself. Mm-hmm. But some of the most important halls where opera singers have to sing auditions, they get a completely dry acoustic and then they freak out and they don't
Yeah.
commit
Yeah.
and they tank.
Yeah.
So we classical singers, also need to be able to trust our ability to do what we know we need to do what we know works, commit to expressing ourselves, and then understand how to interpret the feedback that we're getting from our bodies, the feedback that we're getting from the rooms, in a way that will support what we're doing and not derail us.
Yeah. Because
We need this too.
to be derailed is to resort to compensatory behaviors. And to when you resort to compensatory behaviors, you're not going to be singing the way you want to be singing because you're just trying to
Because yeah,
footing.
you're trying to like do the result instead of express yourself. Uh, we,
Exactly. You're just,
we were talking.
or as I used to just like, I used to say when I was a freelance singer, I'm just going to aim for the end of the song and sing.
That's a good strategy.
I mean, it
We
was
were talking about.
survival.
I mentioned when we were chatting earlier, my teacher is W. Stephen Smith, who's on the faculty at Northwestern University and lives not far from you.
Hmm.
And so I hope that you will, have the opportunity to get interested in each other's work. But he's very plain speaking. He's from Arkansas, and he just has a wonderful way of summing things up. And the way that he would put it is, you do what you do, and what happens happens, but you can't do what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I
Well,
think, the paradox for us, no matter what kind of music you're singing.
yes, I agree. And to be honest, Claudia, a lot of people who take my class are people who have been trained in Western classical and are independent teachers, and they need to understand popular styles because that's all their students. Because when you're an independent teacher, not in New York City, that's all your students is people, or 90% of your students, between 90 and 100% of your students want popular technique either for contemporary music theater or for actual popular styles. And so a lot of people who are trained in Western classical take my class in order to help their students because they are awesome people. So I like to stay in my lane, and I don't talk about what this will do for classical singing, but I will also tell you pretty much to a person. Every classically trained teacher who has taken my class has said that it's helpful.
This isn't news to you.
This is right. This is
Yeah.
not news. And they've said exactly what you say, which is, yeah, Meredith, just because it's acoustic doesn't mean it's the same. You know, acoustic doesn't mean the same. We can be uprooted by a change in environment, or our brains, right? Our processing, our oral processing can be, messed up or shifted just as much as an amplified singer in terms of this is what I was expecting, but here's what I'm actually hearing right now. And I'm used to using my ears, and I'm used to using what I sound like to sing. And then when I'm not getting that, what I'm used to, it's unnerving. Then you're not really making art. Then you're just surviving. You're just, what did your teacher say? Getting through it. Wait, tell
You
me.
do what you do, what happens happens, but you can't do what happens.
You can't do what happens, right? You can't do what happens.
And so what
But
happens?
that's where we go, right? I mean, that's the mindset that we find ourselves in. Is I'm just trying to do what happens.
Well, you're doing what you're doing, and then you're noticing that what you wanted to happen doesn't seem to be happening, or you don't know whether it's happening because you can't hear, right, with all the other stuff happening around you.
Right.
And so, because you're not sure that what you're doing is getting the result that you expected, you try to control the outcome. And
Right.
then that's just, a cascading fail because you can't.
It's a cascading fail in an audition. In a 3-hour gig, it's going to take you out for a few days.
Oh yeah, you're gonna just shred your.
You can. Anything from fatigue, to I really should probably just put a piece of tape over my mouth for a week because I feel that bad. I mean, it runs the gamut, of course, but how people respond. And sometimes people, they say, "Oh, I'm a little tired," and then they go do the next gig, and then they're more tired. But also the difference in my world is that people don't there isn't a predictable outcome for popular like there is for Western classical. There's a structured, we expect to hear things be a certain way for that genre, and that's just not the case. So the people who come to me are people who already have identified a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're just coming to me going, "This is my problem. I need to do 5 gigs in a weekend, and I can only do 2. That's my problem," or whatever their problem is. So they generally don't come to me just saying, "I sense that I could sound better." Generally not.
When you frame it that way, it's just it's American capitalist culture that we just need to produce, produce, produce all the time. And it just kind of like my heart goes out to these people who are coming to you for help because they're like, I need to be able to do 5 shows a week and I can only do 2 shows a week. But the real problem is my voice hurts.
Right.
I want to express myself and I want to share all of the music that's in me with the world.
Right.
But I can only do it a couple days a week because my voice hurts.
Right.
Not like I can't produce at the level that I need to have my career. And
Right.
I want singers to just take care of themselves and value their art and their instrument and understand that this is supposed to feel expansive and good.
Right.
And so if it ends up hurting or costing you so much, um, it's important not only for your gig and your income and your audiences, but it's important for you as a person because if what you are sharing with the world is costing you your own physical well-being, then that's part of what you're sharing with the world. Whereas if you are taking really good care of your instrument, so I'm sorry, my computer's doing something weird. I hope are we still okay?
Yeah.
If what you are doing is taking really good care of your instrument and attending to what the conditions that you need in order to be able to share your love and share your feelings and share your music with the world, you are modeling that level of self-care for everyone who listens to you. And if you're a teacher, you're modeling that level of self-care for all of your students. And I would like to see.
Oh, I lost her. Oh, that is so sad because that was going to be a really great closer. I wonder if she'll come back. Maybe we should stay on for just a second and see if she comes back. But if she doesn't, I just want thank you for being here with us today. And I loved what she was saying at the end, what Claudia was saying at the end, that we I'm going to oh, she's back. Wait, maybe she'll finish her thought and I won't have to. She's back. Hi.
Okay.
I loved
Hi.
what you were saying to kind of wrap up our conversation. That you were do you remember what you were saying? Are you on
Well, how far did I get? I was just talking about the importance of singers to, really attend to their own well-being and really prioritize that rather than just think like, oh, I have to fix my well-being so that I can go to work.
Yes.
Because
And you
then
are
you're
also
modeling that level of care for your audiences and for your students.
right. And that's the thing. So the people that my watch my broadcasts are almost exclusively voice professionals, people who for a living are helping other singers, but they are also singers themselves. So that's
Yes.
what I want you to say something smart and Claudia like to those people along those lines. That modeling.
Voice teachers, you are mentoring your students and you are setting an example for them. And so the better care you take of your own voice and the better care you take of your own life and your work-life balance and the way that you run your business, the more the more you express the importance of self-care in the way that you do your things yourself, you're going to communicate to your students that they can do that too. And this is not something that most of us had when we were coming up, because I had voice teachers who were being paid a shitty wage as adjuncts, pardon my French, and sacrificing so that they could teach me.
Right.
I had teachers who felt like they had to sacrifice other things in order to do the job of teaching me, and who had to sacrifice their own integrity in order to get along with the opera director, the conductor. And I don't want to pass that on to my students. I want my students to feel like they're important. I want them to feel like their artistry comes first, and that they deserve to be treated fairly and well by the people around them. And the music industry can be really tough, because you're going to show up for your gig and do the sound check, and the equipment's not the way it's supposed to be, but someone's going to be telling you, no, you have to go on, just deal, just
Right.
And no.
And
if
no.
I
And
if
just no.
if I'm taking care of myself, I'm going to encourage you to take care of yourself. And I encourage all of you to take really good care of yourselves, so that you can not only feel good, but communicate to your students that it's really important for them to take care of themselves too.
Yay. Thank you for those wise words. Now, if I am interested in taking one of your courses, what do I do?
If you would like to enroll in my online vocal fundamentals course, then there is a link that I think I shared with you, Meredith, if you could append it to the description afterwards. And if you would like to work with me one-on-one through my Vocal Elementals program, there's a rather long onboarding process, because it's a big commitment to do a program like that. So step one is you reach out to me, and we jump on Zoom, and we have a conversation about what you'd like to do, and I answer questions, and if it's still a go, then we set up an assessment lesson, and we take it from there.
Oh, that's nice.
So
That's great.
you basically just shoot me an email, shoot me a text, and Meredith, if you wouldn't mind telling people how to find me. Then...
She's all over the internet. She's famous. She's fancy. Claudia's fancy. Just look up Claudia Friedlander. She's be on the top of page 1.
Well, you might find me, or you might find my old stuff, because as we talked about earlier, I've been upgrading a lot of my online stuff, and there's some links that don't work, but I'm trying to find them.
Yes. I certainly will include your links in the comments on Facebook, and the links in YouTube in the course description. So absolutely, for sure, that's where you can find them, folks. If you're seeing this later on the replay, that's where you'll find those links. And thank you so much, Claudia, for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to do this anytime, because you are wonderful,
really?
and inspiring to talk to.
Okay.
Yes.
You're coming back
anytime.
All right. Thanks, Claudia. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week. Bye-bye.